Hannah lay on the cold pavement, breath trembling as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. The sting in her palms spread upward, mixing with the sharp pulse of embarrassment that burned even deeper than the physical pain. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry in front of anyone, not ever, but tears pushed forward before she could stop them. It wasn't just the fall. It was the feeling of being powerless, exposed, and reminded once again of everything the accident had taken from her. She could hear Brad laughing behind her, that cruel sound echoing like a confirmation of her worst fears. For a moment, she didn't want to move, didn't want to look up, didn't even want to breathe. She just wanted the world to stop long enough for her to gather herself. And in that fragile, quiet second, she wondered how much more she was supposed to endure. Hannah began her morning like any other, moving down the sidewalk with steady, practiced motions, trying to focus on the warmth of the sun and the gentle breeze brushing against her face. But deep inside, she carried a quiet fear of being seen as weak, fear of becoming a target yet again. As she reached the bus stop, she spotted Brad standing there with that familiar smirk, the kind that made her stomach tighten. She tried to avoid him, hoping maybe today he'd ignore her. But cruelty rarely needs a reason. With a sudden, deliberate shove of his foot against her wheel, her world flipped. Metal slammed against pavement, her hands scraped the ground, and a sharp cry escaped before she could stop it. Lying there, helpless and exposed, she realized the moment she always dreaded had come true, and it hit harder than she ever imagined. In the days that followed, something inside Hannah began to shift, almost quietly at first. She still remembered the fall, the pain, the humiliation, but stronger than all of that was the image of those bikers standing around her like a living wall of protection. It replayed in her mind whenever she felt nervous, whenever doubt tried to creep back in. For the first time since her accident, she didn't feel alone. She found herself speaking a little louder in class, joining conversations she used to avoid, even saying yes to things she once felt too anxious to try. People noticed the change, not because she suddenly became fearless, but because she finally believed she deserved to stand tall, wheelchair or not. And every now and then, when fear tried to return, she reminded herself of that thunderous moment that taught her the truth she would carry forever: kindness can rebuild what cruelty tries to break. Brad stood there, the color draining from his face as the reality of the moment settled over him. A minute ago, he had been the loudest voice on the street, laughing, mocking, certain that no one would ever challenge him. But now, surrounded by nearly 100 silent bikers whose presence spoke louder than any threat, he looked small, smaller than Hannah had ever seen him. His mouth opened like he wanted to defend himself, but no words came out. There was nothing he could say that wouldn't sound empty. He shifted his weight nervously, eyes darting from the leader to the circle of riders, then back to Hannah, as if suddenly realizing the weight of what he'd done. For the first time, he felt the difference between intimidation and true strength, and he understood that cruelty doesn't make you powerful, it exposes how powerless you really are. As the motorcycles slowed to a deep, steady rumble, the riders formed a tight semicircle around Hannah, so precise and protective that it felt as if an invisible shield had closed around her. Brad and his friends froze, unsure whether to step back or run, but the bikers weren't even looking at them. Their focus was only on the girl lying on the pavement. The leader switched off his engine first, the sudden silence almost more powerful than the noise before it. He climbed off his bike with calm, deliberate steps, his presence strong but strangely comforting. Without a word, he knelt beside her, lifted her wheelchair with practiced ease, and helped her sit upright, checking her like someone who genuinely cared. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't demand an explanation. He simply made sure she felt safe, protected, and seen in a way she hadn't felt in a very long time. Just when the silence felt unbearable, a faint vibration rolled through the street, so soft at first that Hannah thought she imagined it. But the sound grew, layer by layer, building into a deep, powerful rumble that made the ground beneath her hands tremble. Brad's laughter faded as he and his friends turned toward the road, confusion spreading across their faces. Hannah lifted her head slightly, blinking through tears, and saw something she never expected, a line of motorcycles, sleek and dark, cutting through the morning light like a moving wall of thunder. One row, then another, then another. They weren't slowing down out of curiosity, they were arriving with purpose, riding in perfect unity, their engines roaring so loud the air itself seemed to vibrate. It didn't feel like danger. It felt like something bigger than fear was coming her way, something that carried strength, protection, and a message she desperately needed.